All right, well, welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. This is our third episode, and we are so excited that you've joined us today. Really excited about the show because we want to introduce to you, drum roll please. I know that people have been waiting to meet Sunita Ponton, aka Daughter of Englewood. We're excited to have her, not just on the on this broadcast, but really a part of our staff. Very excited about having her here. She'll be joining us full-time starting in August as the Director of Justice, Advocacy, and Compassion, and also the Executive Director of Metro Community Center. Welcome, Sunita.
Thank you. Thank you.
So great to have you. And Kevin, it's always great to have you.
Good to be here.
Great. We got, again, in order for this show to go well, you need to ask us questions. So feel free to ask Sunita any questions. She can do 10 push-ups without stopping. All right, if that's one of your questions, it was one of my questions. But there's a lot of things she'd love to share with you, and for you to get to know her better, it'd really help if you ask some questions. I actually have my phone here, so I'm going to try to get your questions live as you ask them in real time. I'll do my best to do that. So Sunita, we're so, again, delighted to have you here on the show, but more importantly, to have you part of our staff. Can you share just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am from Englewood. I was born in Brooklyn, but wasn't there long, and grew up in Englewood. Proud product of the Englewood Public School Systems, graduated from Dwight Morrow, and have lots of Maroon Raiders stuff in my closet still.
Nice.
And then I was blessed to be able to go on to Columbia University and then Harvard Law School, and eventually leaving Harvard, realized that God was calling me to ministry. And so took some time off, worked for a nonprofit, and then later went on to Duke Divinity School.
So share with me just a little bit about that. So you were at Harvard for what?
I went to law school.
Okay.
Went in fully intending to be a civil rights attorney.
Nice.
And that had always been
like
my
Brian
dream.
Stevenson?
Yeah, Brian Stevenson.
The president of NAACP?
Yes, that was my dream. Yeah. My dream was to work for, the Legal Defense Fund and, do really great work. And in my third year, was really wrestling about what position to take. I had 2 job offers. I was really kind of praying about what to do, and heard God tell me not to take either one of them. And I thought that was great, because I was like, maybe this is the LDF job is going to be coming. And instead, God said, no, we're going into ministry. So it was quite a shift, but it's been a fun ride.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, I'm personally thankful that God put the brakes on and told you to go into ministry, because you would not be here otherwise. Let me just ask you, so you've been doing some nonprofit, you've been doing that quite a bit now. Hopefully as people get to know you, you share a little bit about what you did for legal outreach, because I think it's wonderful. I tell a lot of people about what you do. But why did you leave that position to take this position?
It's hard. So, primarily because I know that God had called me to the church, and I was doing really great work, but I really felt the need to, and I really still feel the need for the church to be doing more outreach, for the church to really be connected to the community. Yeah. And then there were some practical reasons. I'm commuting all the way to Queens, working for legal outreach, and so there were some, just sort of personal reasons why it just made sense to try to find something more close to home. But I love legal outreach. They do wonderful work, and but I wanted to be closer to home, and I wanted to be able to merge my passion for the church, but then also this outreach work and ministry, because I really do believe that is the goal of the church. I honestly believe that salvation is not just a spiritual transformation, but it ought to impact every aspect of your world. And it's really hard to have a conversation with someone about the power of God and Jesus' transformative power in their life when their situation doesn't change around them and you're not doing anything to transform their situation. It really sort of limits God's power in their life if we're not having a conversation also about your social situation.
Wow, that's great. So I gotta ask you this question though. You have quite a bit of degrees. I'm sure when you move into Sua's office, you may be hanging them up. Columbia undergrad, Harvard Law School, and then Duke Divinity. I'm speaking on humility this Sunday. How do you stay humble with all of that?
I think just being very mindful of the people around you. And I think my family does a great job of keeping me humble.
How so?
I mean, because I still have to wash the dishes. I still have to wash my clothes. I still have to live my life, as a normal person. And, none of those things mean anything if, what do those degrees mean if you can't have a conversation with someone?
Right.
It's nice to have those things, but my father didn't go to college. But he's worked harder than any other person I know. He moved from North Carolina to New Jersey and was able to, build a life for, my mother and my brother and I, and bought a house. And he's able to take care of us and put us through school. And so the degrees are helpful. I know they mean something in the world, but at the end of the day, it's not really what matters.
I like that. I like that. All right, that's fantastic.
Sunita, I have one question for you, and it's probably a little bit parenthetical, but when you said that you really sensed God's direction in not carrying on with the law school, we have a lot of people at Metro that are in similar life season and just, kind of figuring out, where is God directing me? Where is He leading me? Can you go into any more detail about what that experience was like when you were so convinced that God was saying no to something?
Yeah, it was hard. And it's funny because every time Lent season comes around, I get a little bit more anxious because it was the Lenten season, and I was fasting during that time.
Nice.
And so I think fasting allows you to have just a much clearer sense of God's speaking in your world, in your life. And I think part of it was also trusting myself, because people around me, and not in a bad way, I think everyone, if you tell someone you're going to law school, they assume you're going to be a lawyer. Right. And so they start speaking, lawyer things over your life, and that's not a bad thing. But you also have to realize that there comes a point where you have to trust your relationship with God and what God is saying to you. And it's painful to kind of have to turn the train and then get everyone else on board with you. That was a really difficult and isolating time for me. But it taught me that I have to trust what God is saying to me. And I have to trust my relationship with Him. And everybody else will come along. And they did. But it took some time, and it really was painful, and I will never sugarcoat that.
Sure.
But it was the best outcome for me. And it also taught me that the people around me will love me anyway. At the end of the day.
Again, I want to just remind you to send in your questions the best you can. Sorry, I forgot to turn down the volume, and I clicked on the live, and there was a delay there. It was a little freaky. Sorry about that. No. But some of our viewers, Sunita, if I can just be very honest, their parents play such a big role in how they live their life, have really shaped them in that way. You went to some really great schools, and I know, I'm sure that conversation with your father was not very easy when you told him you're going to be a pastor when you're at Harvard, things like that. But how have you been able to, and I don't know how your father dealt with the news when you say you're going to come and work at a church now and leave legal outreach, because at least that was, a pretty prestigious position that you were working there. You were a very high level manager there. But how do you deal with your relationship with your parents? How do you deal with your relationship with your father? And is there any advice you can give to people online who are watching where they really struggle with that, where the voice of their parents almost becomes like God to them?
Yeah, it's hard. So let me say from the outset that, my mother passed away. Yeah. She died of ALS. So I think that was also a complicating factor for me.
How old were you?
I was 21, okay. So I was in my senior year of college at the time. And so when all of this happened in law school, it was really hurtful because my father was my only parent at that time. And, you can always hypothesize about how someone else would have treated this information, right? In my mind, I was like, my mother would have been way more supportive. I don't really know that. I mean, because it was a shift for everyone around me. And so it was difficult. And I had to realize that his desires for me and the pressure that I felt from him were coming from a genuine place of love, and a genuine fear of what this new thing meant, right? It was a shift not only in my world, but it was a shift in his world.
Yeah.
And so, and I was only maybe 2 steps ahead of any question that he was asking me. I didn't really know what this all meant. And so it was hard for me even to explain it to him, what this meant that I was going into ministry, what it meant that I was going back to grad school, and, you know, kind of all this stuff. And I think it's hard. I mean, it is learning to let go, to let go of the expectations, to let go of the need for approval, but also trusting, and really, really, really trusting not only what you've heard from God, but trusting that God will reconcile that relationship. And my father's come around. You know, he didn't even blink an eye, you know,
That's great.
when I told him, you know. So it really is trusting that God will reconcile the relationship back again.
What I'm hearing, I feel like, and for those who are watching, this is key. You went and told your father this, not seeking his permission, but just simply seeking his support, which is very different. Because I think a lot of times with the younger folks at our church, they often go to their parents seeking permission, meaning they give them so much authority that if they don't get the permission, they can't do it. And that wasn't your posture. Your posture was, Dad, I'm doing this, just love to have your support on it. And that's very different than just saying, can I do this?
Yeah, I think it's a hard place to be, but it really comes from having made the decision. I knew that there were very few people that I could talk to about answering the call, about saying yes to God. But once I had said yes, I had to be firm in my yes, and that's when I could start having conversations with other people. So the people who I told initially were very few people, and my father wasn't one of them. But once I had decided, okay, I'm doing this, now I can start having these conversations with other people. So it may be that you can't, it may be that you can't tell your parents while you're still thinking about it.
That's key.
It may be that you can't tell them until you've decided, you know what, God, I am going to follow you. And like you said, now I'm just letting you know, and I hope you support me. As
Hear her
opposed
on
to
that.
helping you
I think that's
through
so
this.
key there, because sometimes our parents, although they love us, they can be quite biased. And I think what you're saying is talking to friends and mentors and people that aren't as biased, but they're really trying to look out for, God, what are you calling Sunita to do? And I think sometimes with parents, you know, it can, especially if there's a lot of enmeshment in that relationship, it can be very difficult for them to have a non-biased sort of an opinion saying, God, what would you like for my child? It'd be very difficult. So I like that advice. Seek it. Once you get approval, then tell your parents for support. That's great. Okay, well, that wasn't really a question that I planned to ask, but you're here primarily, you've joined our staff because we're so excited to have you lead us in our Metro Community Center. And just to give you folks an update who are watching, this Sunday was the last Sunday in which we gave to our building fund, and we received just shy of $94,000. And so I just want to thank every single person who has sacrificially given to this. And Kevin has informed me that more is on the way. Some people have already communicated with him that they're going to donate some stocks and things like that. And it's never too late to give. If you have not given, you can still do that on our website. And I'm sure you can find that on our homepage, on our app as well. But what gets me excited about a community center and a physical building and us doing great programming out of it is really you. Because without the proper human capital, this is not going to work. We can dream about it, we can build it, but it's only going to go as far as a person who can make it happen and has a vision for it. And so I'm really excited about that. So tell us a little bit about what gets you excited about the community center. What are some of the things that you envision when we kind of talked about the 3 focuses and stuff like that? But what is the vision, or what do you see happening in this community center?
Yeah, so I'm excited about it because I think that it's something that I know it's something that this community has been asking for years.
Inglewood community.
For Inglewood. It's something that I remember when I was growing up, people were asking for. So to finally see that it's coming to fruition is exciting. I think that to be able to, for me, when I think of a community center, I think of actually the entire community. And Inglewood is such a diverse place that it's really about leveraging assets in this community. Demographically, it's diverse. Socioeconomically, it's diverse. And people's, political views and all these things are wonderful. And is there a way that Metro Community Center could bring all those things together, where someone or anyone feels like they have a stake in this, or they feel a part of it? And so we're doing things for our young people. We're focused on education. We're focused on the arts. We're focused on sports and recreation and making it fun. But is there a way to also include small business owners? Is there a way to include seniors? Is there a way to include stay-at-home moms, or, and not to take away from all of the great programming that's happening in Inglewood already, but to add to it and to figure out a way to bring these populations together in a nice, safe, fun environment and allow us to have these shared conversations, allow us to live life together as a community.
Wow, that's pretty exciting stuff, yeah. Please ask questions, get to know her, and she can flesh all this stuff out a lot more than what she's even doing here. I don't know if you have any questions about the community center, but I have one more if you want to ask something.
Go ahead.
Related. Okay. One of the big questions I have is, how can our church people get behind this community center? What are some real tangible things that they can start doing right now to get behind this community center?
So, well, obviously, I'm going to say one of the biggest things you can do is give, right? Because we need the building, right? We need the physical space. Certainly pray for it.
Yeah.
But then also look for ways that you can be a part of it. So June 10th is the Summer Basketball League. They're having the basketball game. Come by, volunteer. You just show your face, show your support, and show that you care about what's happening in the community. Look for ways in which that you can be a part of it, and keep Metro Community Center on your mind in your travels. So as you see a new program, as you see something interesting in the newspaper, shoot me an email, shoot Sue an email, and say like, hey, wouldn't it be great if Metro Community Center did this? Or wouldn't it be great if we thought about that? Look for ways that you can volunteer, and of course we know that we're always sending out emails and to let people know how they can volunteer, and really thinking about this as an extension of your personal relationship with God.
Amen.
So much of this is not just about this theoretical relationship with work, walking it out.
Well, that's really key. And I want you viewers, because we have quite a bit of people watching, which is fantastic, but I want you to know that, you don't have to wait 2-3 years till we actually build a physical building and get involved. We're doing things in the community. We have a basketball 3-on-3 tournament coming up in early June. We have Metro Life program. We have the arts camp coming up in end of June, where we're going to reach out to hundreds of kids in Englewood and doing that. So you can really get involved and be a part of this. And so it's not about you waiting a few years for this to happen. You can start letting it happen right now by getting involved. We have a question here from Chiwon. He says, how much will city government affect our decisions and programs that MCC will offer? Any reflections on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that we want to be partners with the city government. We want to think about where there are gaps in the community and programming. We certainly don't want to duplicate anything that's already happening here. But I also think that we have the advantage of being separate from the government.
Yeah.
And we have longevity. The mayor will turn over, maybe not right now, but eventually the mayor will turn over. Eventually city council members will turn over.
Right.
But we have this opportunity to really be a fixed entity in the community. And so we want to work with city government at all phases of it. But we also want to remember that we have longevity. And so we want to make sure that we are a lasting presence.
So what I'm hearing from you is simply, I think, what affirms my understanding. We have a great relationship with the city government right now. We work closely with the Parks and Recreations. We have a board member in Parks and Recreations that is a part of our church. And so that's very helpful. We always take into consideration, the arts camp is going to be a partnership with the city and things like that. But at the same time, there is also sort of this autonomous freedom for us to do things without seeking government approval, because we're funding it, and we're doing programs within the community. And it seems, at least to me, that the government would be completely big advocates of it because they do trust us. And we have a working relationship with them, right? Okay, so there's another question by Michael Kim, which I'm so glad you asked the question. He says, are we looking into grants and additional funding from outside sources, such as federal, state, and local? How would you like to answer that?
Yes, and yes. So we certainly can't do this by ourselves, and the expectation isn't that Metro would do it all by itself. That's not a partnership.
Yeah.
A partnership is when you get other people on board with your mission, get them excited about it, and it also becomes not just a funding opportunity for us, but it also becomes a learning opportunity for us. Because oftentimes when you're working with a grantor, you're able to have conversations with them about some of the other grantees that they work with, and you're able to bounce ideas off of them. And so it becomes a sharing and a learning opportunity as well. So we want those partnerships, not just for the money, but also for the learning opportunity.
That's fantastic. And I think that's something that we've actually talked about a few weeks ago, saying that that's really one of your primary jobs now, is to figure out how we can get more support, local government grants, federal, local, and all that. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about that.
I think Peter, there's something to add there in terms of how the community center was incorporated.
Oh, please,
We went through this process, and we brought some attorneys in who are experts at this, because from the very beginning we wanted to make sure we positioned the community center so it was eligible for all of these types of grants. And also we wanted it to be a place that would be attractive to private donors who may not want to give to a church, but would be very happy to give to something like the community center, certainly as they see the programming that we're going to do. And I believe we've been successful at all of those levels, so we are really open to just all kinds of support from government and non-governmental sources.
And I think you've been so instrumental in that, Kevin, because you brought all that stuff up to me, and it's the moon to me, but you've really worked hard with SUA, with attorneys, to make all that happen, so that as you come in, it's just easy. There's very little that you have to do. Although you are an attorney, you could have probably helped us with that as well. But everything is cleared off so that you have an easy working space to do this. One of my last questions I have for you is, what's your greatest fear about Metro Community Center?
I think my greatest fear is it becoming exclusive.
What do you mean by that?
Because when I think of a community center, I really am thinking about being able to place your hand in every part of the community. And I don't want it to be isolated. I think sometimes when we think of community center, we think of those who are more low income. And so the community center is to serve those who are sort of on the lower income demographically, socioeconomically. But I don't want it to be that way. I want it to be able to reach out. And I want it to be able to reach across. And I want it to be able to be a conversation starter. And so imagine that, kids are coming in to play basketball, but maybe there's also a young entrepreneur who is using a conference room for a meeting that they're holding. And they're both coming in the door at the same time. Right. And so the basketball player asks this business person, well, what are you doing? And they're saying, well, no, I'm getting ready to have a meeting with these people about my project. And so it starts a conversation. And then, this small business owner goes over and watches this kid play basketball. So if we can really think about ways that we can be creative and really think across community, because Inglewood has all these people, they're here. And are there ways that we can serve them together?
That's so good. Honestly, if I'm just going to be honest, I always think about, let's just work and serve the Fourth Ward. But really, it's holistic when you realize Jesus would want everyone, right? And just want everyone and to serve and go across the lines, color, religion, whatever we can, to just embrace the entire community of Englewood. That's why it's great you're leading us in that, because you already have that vision. It's already within you in that. And so I'm really excited about that. Debbie Dennis, you're coming home. I'm glad to see that you will be coming home. She asked, will there be any fundraising efforts? And I think right now, Debbie, there have been some at church. There've been bake sales, there've been other types of things, and I'm sure there's going to be some fundraising efforts that we'll do in the near future for us, and so we're excited about that as well. Michael has another question, and he simply says this: how do you envision the management structure for the community center to be? And I know that's a little bit, might be far ahead, but have you thought about that? What will be the managing structure? And I can chime in, and Kevin, maybe you can chime in as well. But what would be the managing structure for the community center? And Michael, we're going to expect that you help us with this, because I know you're good at this kind of stuff. But anyway, yeah.
Well, good. Well, Michael, I look forward to meeting you.
He does this for a living, so yeah.
Perfect. So right now, it is, as Sua, and then eventually me. And then, of course, we work with Mike Smith and Steve Bang and Carol, who's working on doing our finances. Eventually, we do have to build that out. We will need to have someone who is over programs. We will have to have someone who's helping with grant, not only researching grants, but grant management. Once you get all this funding, you've got to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing with it. I think as the organization grows, you start to add need, and it may start out that it's mostly part-time staff who are able to do more program work, but eventually you will need to build out management as well, having program directors, having maybe somebody full-time who's handling the finances. So I think it does require some thought, and I think it has to grow in accordance to the ability to pay people. But yeah, it is certainly something that we are going to have to think about, and I'm really happy to have a conversation with Mike about any ideas he has and ways to structure it.
That would be great. And currently, right now, at your post where you're serving at, you are one of the directors, one of 3 directors that oversees this. And how many staff members do you oversee right now?
Well, it depends on the time of the year.
Yeah.
So I have 6 direct full-time reports. And then throughout the year it changes. During the school year, there's about 28 part-timers.
Wow.
And then during the summer, about 15.
Additional?
No.
Okay.
Summer staff and programming things.
So 5, So clearly you have experience running multi-staff, understanding structure, and how to lead a team to do a job successfully.
Absolutely.
Which is important.
Absolutely.
Which is one of the reasons why we really liked you.
Yeah.
You guys have been awesome. We haven't had questions like this in a while, and I thank you. Please continue to ask if you do. But if I can just shift a little bit and talk about some of the questions that our community has been asking over the past few weeks, and we do want to address them. And it comes from some folks from our singles community, which I think is great. And you are single.
I am single.
Oh, she's single. Okay, great. There's a question here. Maybe Kevin, you can tackle it first. The question somebody asked was simply, I feel like a lot of young adults / singles feel left out of the church, especially if they cannot commit to serving due to unseen life circumstances / life transitions. How do you feel the church can support these people?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that have similar feelings and stuff. I think that as I've looked at different churches, what I see in Metro is that Metro has taken the steps to provide those opportunities. If a person is single, there's underground groups that meet at different times. There's singles events and activities that are happening there. But after that, there's really not a whole lot that the church can do other than provide those opportunities. And now it's up to the individual themselves to avail themselves of those opportunities. I know that's the hard part. I've been new at churches more times than I would like to recount. And it's always difficult to kind of break that ice. But at the end of the day, it's really going to be up to the individual to put themselves out there, to take the risk, to go try something new, visit a couple of underground groups or something, and see where there's a good fit for the person. I'm not trying to brag about Metro, but I think, honestly, we've done the right things to make those opportunities available to folks.
Sunita, any advice you have potentially?
Come hang out with me. I'm new.
Where do you live? No. Don't give out the address. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to build relationships when you're in a new environment, and a lot of times it requires moving outside of yourself. You know, I'm an introvert by nature, but certainly when you move into a new environment, you kind of have to put yourself out there in ways that you may feel uncomfortable for you initially, but I think it does help.
Yeah, I believe that the only way you'll feel connected in a church, it's not the posture of what can you do to make me feel connected. It'd be very difficult for anyone to feel connected to a church if they're expecting the church to do things and more intentionally than they already are doing to make somebody feel more welcome. The only way somebody's going to fully feel connected to a church if they go with the mindset of how can I be a servant in this community? How can I serve? Because that's theologically correct. Church was never just a place for you to get stuff. And I think in a day and age where we are such consumers and we see the church as a consumer, it's a very dangerous, a non-biblical way of looking at it. And the posture that we need to have is, what can I give? What can I do to serve and be a part of what God's doing here? When you do that, you're just going to feel connected, because that's affirming and living out the vision of the church. And so that'd be my advice. I know people are busy. I know you have different things going on, but the key to feeling connected to the church is also is coming with the perspective of how can I serve this community. Chiwon has asked, do we already have a location in mind? And we do not. There are some locations. We are talking with a real estate person who specializes in churches. But like I said before at church on a few Sundays ago, the place where we'd like to build this community center would be located sort of where our church currently meets right now, like in the 4th Ward. And so that's a critical location that we'd like to be in, so that, you know, kids could walk there and be a part of the community center. So the 4th Ward, I mean, do you know a little bit about that? Can you explain to them where the 4th Ward is? Because people are like, what is the 4th Ward?
Yeah, so actually the office is in the 4th Ward.
Yes, this is 4th Ward.
Yeah, we're in the 4th Ward right now. Now, I couldn't tell you exactly where the demarcations are. I imagine it's probably the railroad tracks and Palisade Avenue.
Yes.
On Palisade Avenue. And I'm not good with directions, but closer to Teaneck, on the Teaneck side. And I agree with you. You know, ideally it would be in this area. We are a little landlocked here.
That's true.
And so real estate is probably at a premium here, but I still don't think it's impossible. So it may require just a little bit more surveying and praying.
And we got to believe that God's going to do this, because we can't do it, and God has to open up a door miraculously for us to get something here. And we believe that. I don't think God would have brought you here if he wasn't already planning this. So we believe it. We're excited about it. I guess the very last question, if there's no one else online who's going to ask anything, is that somebody asked, what happens if they've already tried attending an underground group, which is our small groups, and they haven't found community there? What advice would both of you give to that person if they couldn't find community in one underground group that they attended?
You know, the first thing I'd want to know is how much of a chance did they give it? You know, because if you just go once and you don't make some tight connections, that's probably not reasonable. I think a person needs to give it a little more time. But at the same time, I think they need to give themselves permission to go visit another one.
Yeah.
Because we would be the first ones to say that our underground groups are very diverse, and there's different demographics in each one of them. And also, you know, Pastor David Hosang, Pastor Mike Yee, they really keep their fingers on the pulse of the underground groups. Talk to one of them. Maybe they have a suggestion for you of a group that might, you know, just be a little better chemistry for you or something like that. So don't give up. Don't give up too easy.
Anything? Yeah.
I would agree, and I would also say this is a great opportunity to serve, to volunteer. Because I also think that you get to know people when you're in a position where you're helping and you're working and you're serving with other people. So, you know, maybe this is the opportunity, and I will plug it, you know, for you to help out with the 3-on-3 basketball, tournament, to get to know people in that environment where you're mission driven.
Yeah.
And you're serving and you're working, and you can have more casual conversations and find interest. In that arena.
I think that's so great, because I think some people find community by being a part of a small group, which is great. We offer that. But sometimes it takes a service group or serving group to find that kind of community. Say that I'm here not necessarily to find community, but I'm here to serve. And as you're serving, you find that community. So there's different ways to go about doing it. I agree with Kevin. Don't give up. Just give it a shot. Visit another group. Every group's different. And just because maybe you found one group not to be, may not have met your needs, don't think that's the same for every group. So I would go visit other groups. We have like over 20 groups to go visit other groups in that way. We do have another question from Sophia Yoon. And thank you, Sophia, for chiming in. She says she's never been to a community center operated by a church. How will Jesus be focused at this community center? Bam! We got these two here, so please.
Okay, so I'll start.
Yes.
So I love that question because I think that, one of the things that I was talking about earlier is that we have to be able to show Jesus to people, and we have to be able to help people understand that, yes, we care about your salvation. We want you to build a strong relationship with God, but we also believe that He is able to change your social situation, whatever that might be, and that He's able to meet your needs in the community. So I think we do have to be, on one hand, we have to be careful legally.
Yes.
We can't proselytize necessarily from the arm of the Metro Community Center. But I do think that it's important that when we have people there, particularly from Metro or any other church, that they explain to people why they're there. That I'm here because this is an extension of my relationship with God, that I'm here because I'm offering to you what God has offered to me, and that we practice grace, that we practice community, that we practice mercy with one another, that we change how we do business as a community center, and we become, even in our business dealings, what it would look like if you're working in a godly way.
Wow.
And so it may not be that we have a cross up, at the top of the building, but there should be something different about a person's encounter at Metro Community Center than it would be had they gone somewhere else.
Very good. Yeah.
The first thought that comes to my mind is so much of what is going to happen at the community center and is happening right now has a large compassion component to it. And even as I listened to you earlier talking about things for single moms or maybe ESL classes for people who are new to the community, maybe some refugees and things like that. All kinds of opportunities for us to demonstrate the love of Jesus in how we serve these people. What kind of care do they get from us? What kind of vibes do they get from us as we are serving them in their areas of need? And it won't be difficult for people to start connecting dots that way without us overtly proselytizing. And I have a couple of dreams. One of them is that we have a sign on the building that on one side it says Metro Community Center, on the other side it says Metro Community Church, and people just sort of get that. The other dream that I have is that if a person says, well, how come we don't have programming on Sundays here? And we say, well, no, that's when the church meets. The church meets here on Sundays. Why don't you come and join us? And they come through the door and they see this congregation that just kind of blows them away because they're not used to seeing that kind of a mosaic inside of a place of worship. And I think that those dreams are very realistic.
That's awesome. I think for me, realizing it's great to have others who share the dream with you, and just to be sitting with both of you, hearing what you just said about the community center. I don't really have to say anything because they just take it to the next level, and it's really exciting. I think as long as we love people with no strings attached, Jesus is being proclaimed. And that's really the goal, and what you said is really exactly what we're planning to do. And just love people, but there's no strings attached. And if we can do that, I think people will connect with God in a very deep and special way. I have two more questions. This is fantastic. One by Giovanni. Thank you, Giovanni, for watching us on your lunch break.
Hey, Gio.
He says simply this. He says, how would the community center integrate itself in the public schools, primarily in the middle school, or any other school system? How would we be different from a traditional model? Anything?
Well, I think we, currently we have Metro Life. Metro Life does work with older kids, 11th and 12th grade. And I think their model is really great. This model of bringing together people from the community to be mentors, and also giving these young people new experiences and new opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. And so perhaps, and I hope they don't mind me sharing this, but we met a few weeks ago as a team and thought about, are there ways that we can start drilling down, that we can start going younger and younger and younger. And so maybe this is our opportunity to think through how we can start programming at a younger age, and to really support those kids, and to really not only provide additional academic support, but also give them some new experiences and some new opportunities. I think to the extent that you can expand a young person's vision of what their life can be, it really changes where they go.
That's fantastic, fantastic. Another question from Temi, and I got to do this because we're running out of time here. Temi, I expect you to be volunteering for the 3-on-3 basketball tournament, all right, because you love basketball. But anyway, this is a great question for you and myself, Kevin. He basically said, what can we learn and avoid from other churches that have gone through the church buying building process that may have led to internal strife through the journey? Because a lot of times churches split as a result of this, and we would hear tons of those terrible stories that trying to buy a building, raising money for a building has literally destroyed the church. And so what can we say about that? I don't know if you have any input on it as well.
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts about that, and I don't want to steal Pastor Peter's story here, but we're doing a lot of networking with other churches who have gone through similar things. Pastor Peter just came back from a gathering of pastors of similar-sized churches, and they talk about stuff like this. We're working with a couple of different outside organizations, one within our denomination, one outside our denomination, that have also walked with many, many churches through this process. And so we're very alert to a lot of the pitfalls, and we don't think we're immune from them. So we're trying to learn from others and hold ourselves accountable as we see things happening, even at the staff level, where we say, oh, wait a minute, you're taking on too much, or no, that's too much too fast, or whatever the case may be. We're having those conversations. But we need your support too. We need your prayer backing in this thing. This is not an easy thing for us as a congregation. And the pitfalls that, even as Pastor Peter just mentioned, are very real. And we want to do everything in God's power to avoid those.
Yeah, I would simply say I'm very aware of the pitfalls or the things that can happen negatively to a church when they try to build a permanent facility. I've been told, I've learned a lot from different people on those things. But I would say two things. Number one, I think what we're trying to do and what we're envisioning is very different than just building a church building. We're trying to build a community center for the city of Englewood. I personally feel, and this is I don't want to, no offense to anyone who takes this personally, but I think building a church building and spending millions of dollars on it for really one day of operation where it's being used at full capacity is it's a big waste of money. And and I feel if we're going to do something right in this community, it's building a building that is a church on Sundays, but also from Monday to Saturday, it's a vibrant community center where it's reaching kids, adults, you name it. I think the vision is very different from just we're going to build a church building. So that's number one. Number two, we have some really good people that we're seeking out right now, potentially as consultants. They're actually consulting agencies that work for churches to do capital campaigns so that it doesn't destroy the community. They've learned from other people. They're experts at this, and they know what the pitfalls are that can destroy the church. And I don't have any experience in this. I don't think Kevin has any experience in this, and I don't think you have any experience in this. And so we're really looking to hire, maybe bring on somebody to help us as a consultant to lead us through a capital campaign so that rather than it causing division, it causes greater unity and excitement. And so we're kind of leaning towards that. So that's the best answer I can give. We'll do the best we can. I think we're all unified on this. We're excited about it. We're 13 years old. Most churches have buildings by the time they're 6-7 years. So we've almost doubled that. And I think we're not rushing into anything. This is time. We need a facility to do something significant in this community for generations to come. And like Sunita said, we're definitely going to hopefully outlive governments and outlive us. That there will be other people that will step in after we leave, we retire, but the community center will be going on, I hope and pray, for 100 years or so. So that's the hope and that's the dream. You have been so great, Sunita. Guys, aren't you excited? An online applaud of Sunita. How amazing is this woman? You get to know her. She's going to be a part of our staff. She's going to be your pastor. And she's also going to be leading us in this charge of the community center. I cannot be any more excited about it. We're going to miss Sua dearly. She'll always be a part of this church, but we're thankful that God brought you here. And so continue to pray for us and continue to be open and giving to the community center. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll see you next month. Thanks so much for joining us.